Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode number 90 of Coffee Time with Byron. I'm your host, Byron. Alongside me via StreamYard and live on YouTube as we speak, and available next day on all podcasting apps of Anchor, Spotify, iHeart, you name it, Apple, all who's who of podcasting apps. But alongside me is former NHL player Dan Frawley. Did I say that correct?
Yes, you did.
Perfect. Thank you for joining us. And how are you doing? How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing great, Byron. Thanks for having me on. I brewed myself a nice cup of coffee to join you.
I
So,
see that. Thank you. You're the first one to actually have coffee on coffee time.
well, I made sure that I had one. I enjoy coffee when I
Even
do
me, for
it.
that matter. The host hasn't even had coffee yet on coffee time.
Yeah, you can even get away with just a coffee cup drinking your water.
Exactly. But let's get right to it. Um, You were 204th overall in the 1980 draft by the Chicago Blackhawks. Now, how did the whole draft process go about? Did you know exactly where you were going to go, or did you think you were going to go lower in the draft? Because that's kind of high for being drafted. Were you not sought out? What tell us how the whole draft process went for you?
Well, I think a couple years earlier they lowered the draft age to 18, so you were eligible at that. So I played major junior A hockey in Sudbury for the Sudbury Wolves. We had a really good hockey team, and we did well in the playoffs. I played with Dale Hunter was my centerman. I scored 20 goals, and so as far as the draft back then, I think I was helping my dad paint the house the day of the draft, and I don't know what I was thinking, whether I would be. Probably I hadn't heard anything beforehand. So it wasn't until after I got drafted that I got an agent and did stuff. But yeah, it turned out that the following season I was traded from Sudbury to the Cornwall Royals, who played in the Quebec Major Junior League, and
Mm-hmm.
they had won the Memorial Cup the year before, so they were defending champions. So I got traded out of the Ontario League into the Quebec League, but I was really fortunate that I got traded to a really good team, and we ended up winning the Memorial Cup again. Some of the and to finish that note, first the my agent told me that if I hadn't been drafted in the 10th round, right near, I can't remember how many people were drafted behind me, but not a heck of a lot of guys. If I hadn't gone in that draft, the following year I probably would have gone in the second or third round, which means a lot as far as how much the teams invest in you and how much they want to look at you. So it was kind of good and bad. I was very happy to be drafted by Chicago and got to play for them,
Mm-hmm.
but it could have been different had I not been.
Now, you were the ideal weight, I believe, for a hockey player, about 170, in between 170 105 pounds. That's pretty good for a hockey player. But honestly, I look at your height. Over anything over 6 feet to me, somebody should have been a basketball player. How did you handle that playing hockey? Because that's kind of tall for a hockey player, isn't it?
6 feet back then was okay. I think tall would have been 6'3". It's not like nowadays where a guy's 6'4", 240 pounds, fast as anything. Back then, it was either you had a choice to make. If you were a big player, chances are you weren't going to be very fast.
Right.
So when I played, well, number one, that 170, I think that was my first year major junior A. When I turned pro, I was like 195. I think I played most of my career at 195.
Mm-hmm.
So I in the summer my weight would go up, but I couldn't really play in the NHL at 210 pounds. I wasn't fast enough, so I had to. Back then, you had to lose weight to get faster and more, lean muscle. And if you wanted to be stronger, then you'd sacrifice speed. So I guess times have changed, or guys have gotten a little bigger, but bigger and faster.
That's true. You're right. They have. So, like you said, I want to talk a little bit now. Like you said, you spent most of your time in the AHL, where you said you won, which is true. You won in 1981 Memorial Cup against the Kitchener Rangers. Tell us about that whole experience and winning that, because that's honestly how close you guys came to winning a cup. I don't think you ever won cup as a pro, did you? In the NHL?
Not in the NHL, no. But at the AHL, we won the Calder Cup in '96, and I won the Turner Cup in Muskegon in '89 or '90. So 3 championships, not the main one I wanted. I still never would touch the Stanley Cup in case there was some strange chance that I could actually be involved in winning it at some point. But back to Memorial Cup. Like I said, the team in Cornwall had won the year before, and then we went and defended it in Kitchener. And Kitchener had a really strong team. They had Al McGinnis, Brian Bellows. Probably 5 or 6 guys that played in the NHL, but we also had a pretty strong team. We had our number one line had Dale Howachuk at center and Mark Crawford as his winger. Our second line was Scotty Arneal, and then our third line, which I played on, was myself and Doug Gilmore as our centerman. So we really had a strong center group. And also our defenseman, we had 2 players. One went in the first round. He played about 2 or 3 years in the NHL and then decided he wanted to retire and become a doctor. So he could have played a long time. And then the other one, Fred Boynstruck, went in the second round to Toronto, and they brought him up as an 18-year-old and just destroyed his confidence. And he was out of the NHL within 2 years. But I think getting the opportunity to play there and with those players, helped me throughout my NHL career in the way I tried to approach playing the game. So, very beneficial.
So do you still talk to, like you said, you had some NHL players that you played with on that team. Do you still talk to any of them to this day?
Yeah, it's funny you should ask. We got together on Zoom this May. I believe it was May 10th is the anniversary of, I think it was let me get this straight, 40th anniversary of us winning the Memorial Cup. So we got,
right. 81. Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
So we all found each other's, somebody hunted down everyone's email address, and we sent out a Zoom meeting, and we got together and watched a bit of the game. It was hard to watch the game because in '81 the video work was not very good. So
right, yeah, very true. Yeah, you're right on that.
So we just sat and talked for hours about being young and playing hockey and having fun.
So, since you were there and you won that cup, when you won that cup, is there any other games that you can recall that you can remember most out of your minor league experience before you got into the NHL that helped you along the way towards your NHL career? Is there any other games besides winning that cup?
You know what? Probably my experience in my third year pro, still with the Blackhawks organization. They moved their farm team from the AHL to the IHL, which at that time was the third tier of hockey. So there was the NHL, the AHL, and the IHL was pretty much a low level. It was kind of like each team probably had 5-6 guys that racked up 350 penalty minutes a year, just like nothing. So So we go in there. We're the number one farm team, and most of the team is 20, 21. I think our oldest guy, captain, was 23 years old. So a whole bunch of young guys playing against teams, 35-year-olds. We're looking at them like, good God. And it was kind of like their mentality in Chicago at that time was sink or swim. Let's throw these guys in, and whoever survives and gets through it, we'll bring them up and go from there. And I think I played 23 games there, maybe around 23 or 4 points, almost a point a game. But I think I was like 160 penalty minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And that wasn't trying to be aggressive. That was just to survive. Like I wouldn't let guys intimidate me, and we had other guys in our team that, they had like 500 minutes in junior, and they were tough guys, and they just quit. They just couldn't fight through it. So I think that really made an impact to me.
So after that, you play your rookie season in 84, 85 with the Blackhawks, the team that drafted you. Tell us about that experience in your first game. Did you have jitters, goosebumps, and who was there? And who was there for your was you have your wife, kids, family? Who was there to help you get you through that experience of your first game in the NHL?
Well, I played like 3 games the prior year, and they were on a road trip, so nobody was at the games. I just got called up last minute, got into the lineup, didn't play a heck of a lot. But the following year when I was there, I got called up after those 20 games in Milwaukee, and my girlfriend at the time, who's now my wife, she was in Milwaukee when I got called up. So we went up together, and I stayed in a hotel for quite a point of time. But it was pretty awesome whole experience. The thing was that with Chicago, I didn't really feel like a rookie because being in their system since I was 18, and I think I was playing with them at 22. So 4 years, and a lot of those years I was like the last cut. So I'd play 5, 6 exhibition games, and at the last minute they'd say, okay, we're going to go with someone else and send me down. So really hard to pinpoint exactly what I consider my first game, but it was a good time to play there. I remember one game and I think that's how I ended up in Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh was in town, and Mario was the number one guy.
Yeah,
I think he's a couple of years younger than me. So they assigned me and 2 other guys. We were gonna check Mario's line. So okay, cool. So we get out there and we play against Mario the whole night. In fact, I have a picture of him and the Penguins and me and the Blackhawks, and we're side by side. So I think we beat them like 5-4. Our line maybe had like 3 points, and I was maybe second star. And I think that went a long way to Pittsburgh looking at me for the following year. But it was funny. The coach at the time, the next day, that was kind of like the beginning of video work. So we were doing videos, and all he could talk about was the 4 goals that they scored against us, and not the 5. We're talking about Mario Lemieux. He's going to score his goals. So.
Right. Yeah. One of the all-time greats. Yeah, of course. Now, don't you find that quite funny that you look at back to this day when you did face off against them, even though I know at the time you weren't going to go to them, but I mean, come on. Mysteria, right? You play against them, and then you get picked up by them on waivers. Go figure, right? The team that you played against first, and then you get to play for them the following year after that. You get picked up by waivers. How funny is that? Not often do you see that happen. So what did the Blackhawks tell you? Why'd you get cut? Did they just not want you no more? Like what happened with that? How did that whole process go, and what did that make you feel like as a player?
Well, the GM and part coach every now and then if they fired a coach or whatever, he would come in was Bob Pulford, and he was captain of the Leafs in the 60s. So but us coming in as 18, 19-year-olds, we just see this old guy sitting there. But he was brutally honest with us. He never lied to us. Like he told me that he said, Dan, you can play in this league, just not on our team. So I tell people that story, and they just crack up, think it's funny, but it was true in his mind. He felt that because this was the time the Edmonton Oilers were the best team in the league, and they would beat us in the playoffs like 8-1, 12-2. So obviously we weren't competing well with them, and so in his mind he needed a quicker team, and he didn't feel that I was quick enough, which was I think everyone saw me play would say I wasn't the best skater in the world, but I think he went up. Eddie Johnston, the GM in Pittsburgh, and Pulford were friends. They'd worked together previously, so I think they had talked. So Bob was a big fan of the way I played. So I think it's just the same thing you were saying about how things work out, and for him being not a fan, but a supporter, I think for me that worked out a lot, because I don't know how many teams there were in the league that were interested in me as a player.
Right. And you just happen to get lucky by the Pittsburgh Penguins, which, like I said, on October 7th, you get picked up by them on waivers, and then you spend your next 4 years with them. What was it like playing alongside? I mean, literally, I know we can't compare eras, but he was I know a lot of people say Gretzky was the best, and I agree with that. But it's an era sport. You can't say who's the best and who's not. I know I hate those debates, but whatever. But what was it like playing next to Lemieux? Because ultimately, you had to sit down and give up your captain once you left to him. But I'm sure you didn't feel bad about that after you left, because you felt like he was in good hands giving it to him.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think how that went about, that I was asked to be captain, was that we still felt, this is back in the day where they didn't name the captain as a 19-year-old, first year out of junior. So they still wanted to give him time to mature. And it's funny that this was 87. And back then, if a hockey game was on in Canada, you couldn't watch it in the U.S. There was no interest in it, and there was no cable or no one showing it. So this was a year in Canada that they had a tournament called the Canada Cup, and Canada played against Russia in the finals. And famous play, I see it all the time on TV, was Dale Hawerchuk takes the draw. Gretzky gets the puck with like a minute left in tie game, and they come up the ice and pass it over to Mario, and he scores the game winner. And so we knew nothing about this going on. All we heard was that Canada won, and Mario played good, and But when he came back from that, he was a totally different hockey player. He played to win and was determined to win and do the things that mattered. So, and I was still captain. And then I blew up my knee, and
that's what I saw. Yep.
Yeah. So at that point in time, he took over, and then when I got healthy, coach said, well, Mario's going to stay captain. I'm like, yeah, okay, that's fine with me. he deserves it.
Now, within those 4 years that you were captain, obviously you had the C. It means something to. I mean, it means something to players, and especially in that locker room. So what did the players think of you as captain? Did they go by with whatever you did, said, or how was it in the locker room playing with those players? Were they for you as captain?
I believe so. We had for I think towards the end of '87 and into '88, and we had a really strong team, and we are just maybe a piece away from getting into the playoffs. And once you get in, anything can happen. So
Right.
yeah, and our coach, the year I was named captain, was out of the Montreal system, Pierre Kramer. And in Montreal at the time, they had Brian Scrudlin was their captain. And he was, he wasn't their best player on the team, but he was a hard worker, led by example, did the little things, the dirty things, the dirty work that has to be done for a team to be successful. And that's what we talked about. He said, I'm not a big talker, and I'm not going to go in there and
Right.
nor is Mario. We're not rah guys. We're going to lead by example, and so I think that's what I tried to do. And I know my teammates appreciate it. We played in a lot of tough arenas to play, and then I always prided myself on showing up and playing my game, irregardless of who we were up against.
Do you still have ties with the Pittsburgh Penguins? Do you still talk to the alumni there, like Mario Lemieux himself?
No, I haven't talked to Mario in some time. On a hockey team, you've got 20 players, and probably, I know they use the term cliques, but they're just like groups, like anything else, where you've got, say, 20 people.
Yeah.
Certain people gravitate towards each other, and you have your friends, and they have their friends, and we were just not like in the same group that did stuff together. So, but as far as like friends in the dressing room and getting along with that, we were great that way. And just the dynamics of how the team works is as long as the players get together, respect each other, and play together, that's the main thing that counts.
Now, tell us about that season that you made it close to the playoffs. What do you remember most about that season? What happened that you guys just didn't make the playoffs? Was it just chemistry issues? What happened? Better teams? What happened? Tell us about that season that you almost made the playoffs but didn't.
Yeah, I think it was 2 seasons. Let me make sure I got this right. It would have been 87 and 88. I believe I think maybe our goaltending one season wasn't up to it, and down the stretch, I think both years we played strong towards the end of the year, and we're always like a couple of points. Like I think the one year, right down to the last game, we had a chance to get in. And the division we played in had a lot of strong teams. Like Washington was strong, Rangers, Philadelphia was almost going to the finals every year. So really strong division, I think, was the biggest thing. And back then you played 8 games against your division rivals. So 48, almost 50 out of 80 games was against your division.
Yeah, and you guys didn't have many divisions like there are today, did you? You only had like what, maybe 4 divisions total, I think.
Yeah, 4 divisions
compared to what, 6 today. Isn't there like 6 divisions in each league? There's like 3. There's like 3. Well, 6 total, but 3 in each league.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that had to make it more difficult than when you think about it, because you were competing in 4 divisions, which is 2 in total each league. So yeah, I mean that had to be more difficult. Like what? Like I mean, and plus you were in the era where you had stacked rosters, so that made it even more difficult. So I mean, the pressure had to be intense, especially come close to playoff time.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think if we had been in
Plus, they didn't believe in, and plus they didn't believe in tanking back in the day like they do now.
that's for sure.
So yeah, I mean, it had to be intense for you guys, especially come close to playoff time, especially come All Star break when you guys were, if you guys were close. I mean, you guys had to go to the trade deadline or get a free agent or something just to catch up, you know. So I mean,
Yeah.
for all intents and purposes, that was a rough game back in the day. I mean, this, I mean, don't get me wrong, I like hockey nowadays, but I just, it's, I mean, as a former player and that day, you got to not like the game that much. I mean, how physical it was back when you played to now, it's just like, I don't know. It's, what do you think as a former player?
Well, I think it's a different game completely. Not completely, but as far as the physicalness of it, I think a good example is like the other night where Austin Matthews gets 2 games for
Yeah, I know. I heard about
second.
that. Yep.
Yeah. Whereas back in the day, when there was a penalty, the defenseman would go to the bench and get his solid wood ass stick so that he could cross check you nonstop in front of the net. And guys that earned a living scoring goals in front of the net paid a heavy price to do that. And you know, and now you can be almost any size standing in front of the net. You're not taking the same amount of beating. But on the other hand, I like the speed of the game and the teams that play fast hockey, move the puck and back and forth. Growing up watching hockey in the 70s, Montreal had a really strong team. And the games I remember watching that I liked the best were up and down flow games that went one end shot, back to the other end shot. I think in the 80s and 90s with that trapping, that game became all it was how good you were at carrying a defenseman around the offensive zone.
Yeah.
So, that, I mean, I guess in that sense, there were some good physical battles to get away from the guy and him to hold on to you as well as he could. So it's kind of a give and take.
Yeah, I agree. So now I gotta ask you about outside games. I know you would have loved to play in it. I know they didn't start that until later on, like playing outside in these stadiums, these football stadiums. They didn't start playing that until about late 2000s. Your era, I know they never did that. I'm sure you would have loved to play outside in the cold, wouldn't you have, as a former player? I know you see these games now, and you're like, "Oh shucks, I wish they would have had that when I was playing." Don't you? I know you gotta love it as a hockey player because you.
Oh yeah.
I know growing up you had to play hockey outside. I know that for a fact. You had to play outside.
Oh yeah. I get to. Yeah, I grew up in Northern Ontario, and back in when I grew up, we had TV with 2 channels, and nothing else to do. And winter lasted a long time, and we would
Exactly.
go. I had 5
Yep.
brothers, 4 sisters, or 5 and 5, and so they all went to the rink, and it was just natural for us to find an old pair of skates, head over to the rink, and it used to get so cold that we would pray for our feet to freeze so that they wouldn't hurt anymore, and then we could skate and play and have fun for a couple more hours, and then once we're done, we're like, oh, now we got to go home, and our feet got to thaw out.
Yeah, I know. So you would have loved to play. I mean, you would have loved to play in these games, don't you? When you see these games outside.
Oh yeah, there's no question. All the hoopla surrounding it and the atmosphere. When you play 80 games a year, they tend to just you're playing almost every second day, and they tend to just roll into each other. And anything that breaks that monotony of just playing over and over, and something like an outdoor game that you're looking forward to, you're excited about, and then there's more hoopla around it that just adds to it. So yeah,
Yeah.
there's no.
Don't you think that would have helped the game back in the day if they had them outside? Because I know obviously nowadays when they have those games, they're sold out, especially in football stadiums. They fill out those crowds. Those stadiums fill out. Like I think the previous one with my Bolts, they were in Nashville and they played the Predators and they played at the Titan Stadium and it was sold out. And I've seen others sold out outside stadium games too. So that ultimately you think has to help the game when you think about it, because when you're in an arena, yeah, you can fit like 25, 30,000, maybe 35,000 at most. But when you're in a football stadium, that's like freaking what, 60, 70, 80,000 people. I mean, so ultimately you got to think that's got to help the game. And that would also help too your game in back in the day. Wouldn't you have thought so?
Yeah, I don't know what the I don't know if someone just had a brainstorm one day, or if maybe there were technical issues that they couldn't. I think one of the first games was in Edmonton.
Yeah, it
And I
was.
think, yeah, and I think it was like something like 40 below. So obviously you wouldn't have any worries about the ice melting then. But
Right.
yeah, I mean, there's no question that it's been a bonanza for the NHL, both in attendance and just fans watching on TV. It's grown into a big thing, as long as they don't overdo it and play. Well, I don't know. Maybe it's not a bad thing to play a lot of games outdoors because the players enjoy it.
Now, a two-part question: Were you a fighter, and what's your take on fighting in the game? Do you think it helps the game?
I fought, but I never considered myself a fighter. I always consider myself a player that could fight if needed. And like we talked about earlier, that I tried to do whatever the team needed to do to win. And some nights teams were pressing you to, trying to intimidate you. So I had to have guys willing to step up and fight back. So in those instances, yeah, I fought, but I just think a lot of that went to the level of coaching. It's a lot easier for a coach to get players to go out there and fight and get them all riled up than it is to know your X's and O's and be a technical coach. I've been to coaching seminars where they say nowadays, and it's true for the most part nowadays, that coaches are they motivate the proper way, not through. A lot of coaches back then motivated negatively. It was a lot of cursing and swearing at players. But nowadays, there's less of that. I mean, these guys are multimillionaires that don't need to be verbally abused. But as far as the fighting now, I think the game's fine without the fighting in it. I think people say, well, you're going to have guys using the stick more, little guys running around, but there were guys running around using the stick even worse when there were physical guys there to intimidate.
Yeah.
I've always felt that hockey was a tough game, kind of like lacrosse. If you're going to try to get to the front of the net to score, then you should pay a price for it. And I don't mean like clubbed over the head, but a physical price. It is a physical game. That's the beauty of it. So,
well, out of all your fights that you had, I'm like you said, you were a limited fighter, but you did one when you felt you needed to. Is there a certain fight that you remember that you may have lost, won, draw, whatever, etc., or you just did not like somebody? Well, did you have one of those kind of fights?
That's a good question. Um, no, but I'm trying to think. Yeah, I don't really talk much about fighting, but I guess I could remember one that we were in Boston. I forget what year this is, and I played a regular shift the whole game. I think I was on our second line, and with a couple minutes left, and we played a physical game. They had work on defense, and in Boston, I was fast enough to get in there. So, I was playing physical, and we were trying to win, doing what we could to win. And so it comes down to the last minute. We're in their zone. We're pressing. We're trying to score.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the clock. I'm pretty sure the clock wound down and the game ended. And I think I forget who the coach would have been. It's probably Milbury. But anyways, someone who hadn't played the whole game, I don't believe, Jay Miller, I think was his name, comes off the bench, jumps me, and I don't do well in that because I just been played as hard as I could for like a minute and a half, and I'm tired at the end of a shift. So that didn't go well. So that was one I remember.
Yeah, like you said, you didn't fight much, and you didn't have to, like you said. But I think, though, and I know you have to agree with this as well, because you played in the era where fighting was where they literally hated each other. Nowadays, it's more like entertainment purposes. Do you get that sentiment like I do? Because it seems like nobody in the league hates each other, and they just fight to entertain the crowd. Do you see that like I do in today's game?
Yeah, we're two big guys that obviously are there to fight. They go at it and then they tap each other and say, "Good job." It's like, yeah, that didn't happen back when we played. It was like, guys wanted to physically hurt each other.
Yeah. Now tell us about this Hall of Fame that you're a part of, that you got a part of in 2003. What is this Hall of Fame?
I believe that's the Rochester Americans
Yep.
Hall of Fame. And after I hurt my knee and I was just barely fast enough to play in the league. And then when I hurt my knee, I don't believe I was fast enough anymore. So that was pretty much the end of my NHL career. But I was like 27, 28. And I still wanted to play, and I enjoyed the game. So I went to Rochester and tried out with the Sabres and ended up playing in Rochester for 3 years. We went to the finals 2 out of the 3 years and lost both of them. And then the third year, for some reason, they changed it. They did the playoffs. They had 3 conferences. So each conference played till they got a final. So after about 15, 16 games or 2 or 3 series, the 2 lowest of the 3 played a mini series, a 2 out of 3. So it was the stupidest thing I've ever seen. You're like one step away from winning it all, and you got to play a 2 out of 3 series. So we didn't do well in that. And then I retired for 2 years, and then I came back for 3 more years. And we did win the cup my first year back in 96, and that was John Tortorella's first year coaching in the American Hockey League. We had a lot of fun, and so once I did retire, I was honored to join their Hall of Fame because they've been in the AHL for I think over 60 years now, and they've had some amazing hockey players. A lot of good hockey players come through there. They've won the league championship seven times, I believe. Don Cherry always talks about his days in Rochester as a player and a coach. So, yeah, for me,
the man never shuts up.
Well, yeah, he's off the air now, but he still gets his words in there. Yeah, so it was an honor. join them.
Now, at the time, I don't know if you knew as a player or not, your last NHL game, did you know indeed that was going to be your final NHL game? Because obviously you said you retired 2-3 times before you finally ended up retiring in 98. But did you know it was going to be your final NHL game when you did your final NHL game for the Penguins?
No, I did not. No, I thought perhaps there was a chance, and I mean, that's why you compete as an athlete, because you always think there's a chance. So yeah, I think for a couple of years, like I had some really good years when I played in Muskegon, and I thought maybe a team would take a chance on me. In fact, Toronto offered me a contract, but it was a two-way contract.
Mm-hmm.
And I declined it because Toronto back then, it wasn't a place to.
Right. They weren't good back then. Yeah.
Yeah. So
yeah.
It was didn't make. I mean, there probably might have been a chance, but I didn't feel that it was a good situation to go into. So
now let's talk about the playoff system. When you played, I liked the playoff system the way it was. Now I think the NHL, because of the bubble, they're trying to add more teams to the playoff system. I don't like that, to be honest, because now half the teams I think can get in. That's with all the sports. Half the teams are pretty much in the playoffs now. I don't like it like that. I know they want to do more money wise for all sports, and I get that. But I like it back in the day, because I grew up in the 90s, and you obviously played it in the era, and you played in the playoffs a little bit. So you know how it is. Even in the minors, I'm sure they had the same system. But regardless, the playoff system, you had shorter amount of teams in it, and that made it more entertaining. What about you?
Yeah, I guess I think playoff games. Nowadays it's kind of weird because like I still follow Pittsburgh a lot, so I watch their division, and you see that the top four teams, like right now, Pittsburgh's on course, I think, to play, as of a couple of days ago, like the Rangers, who are a pretty good hockey team. So
yeah,
back when I played, usually they kind of had like a really good team play a not so good team.
Yeah,
almost like one play 8, and but now it's almost like you're playing a team that's just as good as you are. So, a really good team could get knocked out in the first round. But how much is that because of the point system they have now, where everyone gets, there's almost 3 out of 4 points given out every night. So how do you, some of those teams probably back when we played would have been weaker. I'm not an analytical guy or whatever, but I'm pretty sure this 3 out of 4 points makes it a lot tighter than it should be.
I do got to say this, though. I do like what Gary Bettman did. And I'm sure you do too. And I'm sure you wish you would have had it too back when you played. Him getting rid of ties, and now it's the shootout. I like that a lot better. No more ties like there was when you played. There was ties. I hated ties. I hated it, because if you did not score after the third period, it was automatically, or overtime. I'm sorry, overtime. You got a tie. And nowadays, if you go past overtime, it's a shootout. So there's no ties. I like that. I know you would have loved that as a player, wouldn't you? Instead of the ties. Ties had to suck back in the day.
Yeah. We I got to play a little bit in the when they did the shootouts. I think I forget where it was, but yeah, I don't think it affects the integrity of the game having shootouts and that. It's a lot of fun if the fans enjoy it. I'm not so sure about the 3-on-3 though. Because where do they go from there? 2-on-2, 1-on-1.
Right.
I don't know. I don't think it. I don't know. I don't watch a lot of overtime hockey games to see how it goes. The 3-on-3.
Now, is there any other stories that you would like to share with the audience that you had throughout your playing career, like game wise, before game wise, locker room wise? Is there any stories you'd like to share with the audience?
Hmm. Um, Off the top of my head, I don't. I'm not sure. Um, yeah, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I don't have anything off the top of my head.
No worries. Perfect. No worries. Understandable. So obviously, I know you, like you said, you still follow the game to this day, and you still follow the Penguins. What do you think of Sidney Crosby? Where do you think he ranks among the all-time greats so far?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, he's obviously accomplished a lot. 3 Stanley Cups, gold medals. Yeah, I think when it's and even with he's had some serious injuries over his with the concussions and
Yep.
even the time he got the puck in the face, that those things stay with you when you get older and whatnot. So yeah, he plays a physical game down low. Like he doesn't just float at the red line and wait for a breakaway. He actually pays a price, but he's so strong that his body absorbs it and all. I don't know. I think time will tell where he ranks in the level, but I think he'll get up there, top five.
Now, do you think most greats don't get to finish off their career in their hometown that they played for the longest? I mean, look at Tom Brady, look at Michael Jordan, look at even Wayne Gretzky in your league. I mean, it's very rare that they get to spend their whole entire career with one organization. Do you think Sidney Crosby, Sid the Kid, as they call him, do you think he'll be able to, or the Penguins will let him finish out his career in Pittsburgh?
Oh yeah, I think so. I think 100% he's going to finish his career there. He's never been, I think he could have been the highest paid player in the league if he had, you know, but his team would have suffered. So he's been willing to take less, and he still makes a lot of money, and he's been able to thread that line that he hasn't become a burden to the team itself. They've still been able to build around him and keep Malkin, Letang. Unfortunately, they couldn't keep Fleury, which would have
Right,
been nice, But I
right.
think, I think the way things happen with Fleury, I think the Penguins themselves. I'm not 100% sure about the new ownership, but I know going into it, the feeling is that if they can, for sure, Crosby, I think, is going to finish his career there. And
there's not much cleaning up in here.
hopefully Malkin and possibly the Tang will end up there too.
Now, let's talk about the playoffs because they're almost here. Name the teams that you've seen so far or want to be in the playoffs, and do you see a potentially wild card team that nobody's talking about that could run for the cup this year?
Well, I mean, obviously, I watch the Penguins. I cheer for them. So they could possibly do well, but obviously they're not the front runners anymore. I think Carolina's got a really young, strong team. Colorado's been playing really well. Who else is there right behind? I forgot about. I haven't really watched Florida and Tampa Bay play a lot, but I hear and I've seen that Florida's doing well. And now, as far as teams that are, there's no really surprise team this year, as far as I know, that's in the playoffs. But LA's actually having a good year. I don't know where they are in the standings, but and then I think it's what is it? Washington and Boston are the two wild card teams right now in the East. So they're well known teams that have been around. So yeah, it'd probably be a West at a team that a little less heralded that could come out and do well.
Now, what about the Bolts? Do you think they can three-peat? Because a lot of people are saying they have a good chance to three-peat. I, unfortunately, I regret it. I have yet to watch many of the Lightning games, even though I should. I have yet to go to a Lightning game, even though I should. I'm a fan, but I guess I am a disgraced fan, I guess. I don't know. But regardless, do you think they have a shot to three-peat? Because a lot of people are saying they're going to three-peat this year.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't bet against them, but I think they lost their depth. They had a really good, strong line, and I think when Pittsburgh won their 2 cups, it was their third line that really pushed them over the top. And if Tampa Bay haven't replaced that third line, I think it was Goudreau.
Yeah, Goudreau.
Yeah, I really like the way he played in the playoffs last year. So if they haven't really got the strength in that third line, it'll be tougher with them. But they've got some really strong pieces, as strong as any other team. So it's hard to say.
Now, after your career was over, did you ever think to maybe get into coaching, scouting, or managing, like general manager or whatever, behind the scenes, to just stay in the game of hockey? Did you ever think of any of that, doing any of that before you left?
Not really. I was tired of being on the road. I just wanted to do stuff around. I had, make sure when I retired, yes, I had three young boys at home, so I wanted to spend time with them. And then the odd times that I started to think about maybe getting back into hockey, I'd been out of it long enough that I would have had to start near the bottom. So I was like, I'll just do other stuff.
So what do you currently do now then, since you've been gone from the game?
Well, I live back in Canada near about an hour from Ottawa, and I'm working for the Canadian Wildlife Federation as I help them get the word out to Indigenous youth across Canada, and also with their different programs that they have. They have 2 youth programs, and they include Indigenous content in that. So I help them right across Canada coordinate all that stuff. So it's very rewarding. I enjoy working with youth and helping them. And I'm Indigenous, so I've got a lot of background in that. And we have our NHL Native alumni team that, unfortunately, due to COVID, we haven't been able to get out on the road and play in 2 years or whatever. So we're hoping that
this year you can, or next year, yeah, hopefully.
So I haven't really skated. I really haven't skated a lot in the last couple of years, and I'm getting older, so I don't know how long it's going to take me to get into shape this time. But I really enjoy doing that stuff. We have a good group of guys. We have like Brian Trache, John Shabbat, Aaron Asham. A lot of Native hockey players from Canada.
Yeah, a lot of good guys. I've been trying to get those guys on my pod too. I've been trying to reach out to them because I know they're on Twitter as well. So
okay, yeah, we'll talk about that. I'm looking forward to it. I haven't seen them in a couple of years, so hopefully I can. Some of them are younger than me, so hopefully I'll be able to keep up with them.
So, the last question before I let you go, because it's getting late over here. I know it's over there too in Canada. I asked this question to everybody. If you were coaching, I know you're not, but if you were coaching, what would you tell kids, adults, and the minors, whatever, college kids, kids, whatever, etc. How would you coach them, and what would you tell them to get to the level to where you were at in the NHL / minor leagues, and define your career in one word?
I guess my career determined. I did coach a lot of youth hockey, and what I've always the way I'm really strong on how the game is played, like from zone to zone, as far as positioning and going over it. And I believe in repetition. Just keep practicing the basic points and then building out from there. And for kids that are in anything, and that's what we always tell our kids when we meet with them, is that whether it's a hockey player, tradesman, an artist, a student, in a academic sense, that always do your best, try your hardest, and if you do those two things, then whether you can succeed, whether you become like a hockey player or not, it doesn't matter, because you've learned so much by being determined and trying to accomplish it and working hard to reach your goals, that you can never be disappointed in yourself, and you'll know that you've learned a lot of good life skills from it.
I couldn't have said anything better. I do appreciate your time. Thank you so much. I'll stay in touch with you. I'll also send the episode on Anchor, the audio portion, if you would also like to share that, now that I've taught you how to do that. I'm sure it's easier to you now.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I'll send you the episode so you can do that as well. I appreciate it. It was fun. If you know anybody else, like I said, send them my way. I'd appreciate it. Always looking for more interviews. It was fun. So this concludes episode number 89 with Dan Frawley, former NHL player with the Blackhawks and the Pittsburgh Penguins. Is there anything else you would like to add to where anybody can follow you or whatever? Is there anything else you would like to add?
No, that's fine. But I just wanted to say thanks to you, Brian, for having me on. I appreciate it, and it was fun talking to you.
Without a doubt, same here. And I'll definitely stay in touch.
All right. Take care.
Take care. You have a good night.
You too.
Bye.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, I don't know how that's gonna work with my head in there. I don't think that's gonna fit in there.
So we're off the air now?
Yeah.